Smoke and Lights, a novel by Benjamin Goodley. Prologue. Descending from the stage door, Cass cringed at the Illyria Theater's moldy stink. One more reason to do the right thing and move home. She clicked up the volume in her headphones and went back to muttering the choreography. 2 weeks into the tour of Swan Lake, the company was attempting a miracle. Today's show, King of Swing, had only been booked for this one theater, and rehearsals were a distant memory. Plus, Cass had her own mission to keep in mind. Sneaking away for a few minutes of privacy was going to be a challenge. She elbowed her way through the dressing room to a spot at the mirror. She'd gotten up early to French twist her hair at the hotel and reviewed the choreography on the bus. Now, a head start on her makeup was the third step of the plan. She tilted her chin to spritz down flyaways at her hairline, then she twisted her neck to check the back. Satisfied, she indulged in a quick glance at her profile. She loved how something as simple as looking out the corner of her eye could be so intriguing. Remember to use this angle on stage, Cass. If she did walk away from performing, would she ever be intriguing again? Never mind that. Remember to be present out there. Clear your mind and dance in the moment, Cass. You want those dream roles, you've got to compete. Hey, Cass! Iris popped her head up next to Cass's shoulder. Do you have extra bobby pins? Mine keeps scattering all over the bus. Cass nodded, then tapped a finger across her travel kit's grid of mini drawers, sliding open the third row left of center. As Iris reached into the stash, Cass tapped back up to the top right to pull out foundation. Don't wait for me to go upstairs, Iris. Yoshia and I might practice more after rehearsal, so I'm doing my makeup now. She dabbed the sponge over her nose in precision circles. Okay, good luck. Don't poke your eye out, kid. Cass contoured highs and lows as fast as she could around her wide cheekbones, hazel eyes, and arched brows. As more dancers left for rehearsal, she started to wonder if she might get some privacy in the dressing room. It would be too risky anyway. Someone could have forgotten something and come back. She finished just in time to file up the creaky stairs last. The tiny stage confirmed the reason for a different show. Not a single set piece from Swan Lake would have fit in the wings. Each threadbare curtain butted up against cinder block. Dusty stalls instead of wings. Cass gulped down the heat of indignity creeping up her throat. Growing up, she'd known the world's grand opera houses were out of her reach, but the Illyria's stage was barely big enough for the 20 dancers to just stretch. So why keep treating it like the key to unlock all her dreams? This job was never supposed to come between her and her family. She still felt grateful someone had patched together these small-town gigs to assemble the Midwest Professional Touring Ballet. How many sacrifices could she sweep under that gratitude? She needed her plan to work to get some answers. The crew was still finishing up lighting cues. Cass slid down to a straddle and eyed her watch. She'd anticipated a few delays, but starting late never helped. She only had one chance after spacing rehearsal to get some privacy. One excuse that wouldn't raise eyebrows among the other dancers, her friends. The plan depended on her partner Yoshia. The new hotshot, he used every spare moment to practice pirouettes. She watched him on the other side of the stage, showing off 7 and 8 rotations. Hey, Cass! Jack poked her out of the trance, leaning over from a butterfly stretch. He jerked his thumb over at Yoshia. Now that you're leading someone new through King of Swing, anything you want to say to me? Cass squinted at him out of the corner of her eye. I was way easier for you. Ooh la la, los queridos, said Dominic from a lunge behind them, dancing his fingertips across Cass's shoulders and thumping Jack on the back. Oh yeah, that's what she said. Jack couldn't resist the jibe, smacking a low 5 with Dominic before switching into an encouraging tone. Cass, you should be excited that the boss trusts you to partner someone new. Cass acknowledged the compliment with a nod, but couldn't bring herself to smile. She checked her watch and reset her focus, trying to rub the soreness out of her shoulders. Her arms hurt from pulling Yoshia through the King of Swing. He'd treated the piece like a joke, and it was the first time she'd come anything close to missing her last partner, Roy. When Roy left the company last season, his dreams of a better life seemed foolish. What could be better than dancing? Now, Cass might have to work that out for herself, which made their falling out all the more pointless. But any thought of Roy also brought glaring reflections of her own shortcomings, so better to keep him out of mind. The stage manager called the start of rehearsal. After fitting solo and duet excerpts from Swan Lake to the stage, a mediocre run of King of Swing, and a warm-up class, the dancers descended to their costumes and makeup. The timing was perfect for Cass to put the rest of her plan into action. Her brother should have finished battling traffic up the Long Island Expressway. They could finally talk about what was going on back home. "I'll be down in a few minutes," she replied to Iris's beckoning nod. "Yoshia and I are just going to practice the Lindy Hop section one more time." Once they were alone, she strode over to interrupt the whirling dervish. "Yoshia, I need you to keep practicing pirouettes for about 5 more minutes. Don't go downstairs until you see me again." He shrugged an okay, and she took off toward the lobby. The Illyria Theater transfigured around Cass from her first step off the worn stage. The house was ornate, somber, and maintained. Lacquered wood laced over the proscenium arch and its flanks of brass organ pipes. Deep ambers and grays shaded reliefs along the walls and balustrades, all dusted with dark ore gilding. Gothic arches and 2 balconies soared above her as she hurried up the aisle past rows of maroon velvet. Anonymous in the bustle of the lobby, Cass pulled out her phone and dialed her brother. Bring! Near the entrance, she noticed a little girl pulling at her grandmother's hem. Bring! Grandma bent down. The girl whispered a secret in her ear, pointing straight at Cass. Bring! Grandma glanced at Cass and smiled down. Cass could read her lips as she enunciated for the child, "Yes, that's a real ballerina." Bring! The little girl's pigtails quivered above her giddy bounce. Her dimply smile bared gaps between her teeth. Bring! By the beep of her brother's voicemail, Cass had all the answers she needed. "You know what, Tony? So what if I talk to Ma every single day? I don't need more distance from my own fucking mother. We're close. She understands my life as a dancer, wants this for me. If Ma is really so sick that she needs a caretaker, if she really needed me to quit and move home, she would ask me herself. So fuck you for going behind her back and shoving this at me. Fuck you for trying to spoil everything I've worked for and love." Cass jabbed her finger into the screen to hang up and clenched the off button until the screen went dark. She ducked back into the auditorium and paced a tight circle until she could stop shaking. She pumped in cool air with her diaphragm, flushing out the heat and the echoes of her anger. This was just like last year with Roy. She'd calmed down before, and she could do it again. After quieting her breath, Cass dabbed delicately under her eyelashes and headed back to change into costume. She was relieved to find the dressing room quiet. She went about getting ready and swallowed each wave of anger as it came. By the time she'd dressed in her tights and tutu, taped over her blisters, and secured her point shoes, she could put on a confident smile. Iris finished getting ready at the same time, and Cass forced herself to act normal as they climbed the stairs. Hey, Iris, do you know if anyone's seen Madam yet? Let's hope the boss skips this one. Her fingernails need time to recover. No such luck. Dominic knocked out SOS on our door. The sight at the top of the stairs reminded Cass of a surrealist exhibit she'd seen at a museum. The dancers were strewn about in pairs. They wore elegant, glittering court costumes for Swan Lake excerpts, but were practicing bouncy jive steps from King of Swing, each couple whispering their own beat. This was the life she wanted, surreal and alive beyond imagination. "Places," the stage manager announced. After a scurry to the wings and a lingering silence, the curtain rose to the racing arpeggios of the overture. Cass inhaled the energy of the music and the lights. In that moment, she couldn't believe she had even considered walking away from this career. "Okay, clear your mind, Cass. Be present on stage. Smile. Strong feet. Fuck you, Tony." Cass clenched her fists, strangling the flow of criticism through her head. She shook her hands free, pressed her feet down into the floor, ready, then bounded on stage with the music. Chapter 1. After returning to his cubicle, Roy always arched his spine, squeezing his elbows back. Just before they touched, pops between his vertebrae dosed his whole body with cool serenity. The sensation made him feel like a dancer again, made him feel like he was getting ready to leap out into the spotlight. His eyes batted open to face reality. Drop ceiling and fluorescent lights. He rolled his neck to the side, avoiding the sight of his computer monitor, toward the plastic soldiers squadroned on his desk. The figurines had been a gift of encouragement to help him survive the annual tour of the Nutcracker. Now he counted on their support to survive the monotony of this new job. Looking next at the monitor, he was surprised to see a new pending case. Normally, he had to wait half an hour between cases for a new one to pop up in his queue. Perhaps some days wouldn't be so boring after all. If today was just a fluke, though, he'd need to start finding ways to stretch out the work and stave off boredom. But until his first performance review, best to still make an effort. He sat up straight and went to work auditing the case. Check that the names and addresses match across the invoice and payment. Check that the discount and surcharge codes match the monthly updates. Enter the case into the sales database, the comptroller's database, and the compliance database. Print a paper copy and file alphabetically in the audit department storeroom. After returning to his cubicle from the storeroom, Roy arched his spine until the delicious pops soothed him once more. If his job was to detect fraud, he ought to turn himself in. Maybe he only felt like a fraud because he'd needed 12 years of intensive ballet training to become a dancer. 12 years of sweat, tears, and tendinitis. 2 weeks with a policy binder, and now he earned twice as much. This job had been a long time coming, but now it was so easy it felt like a sham. And even if he was meeting expectations, the monotony still unsettled him. If his phone could recognize his face, couldn't a computer do this job too? He reminded himself to trust the universe was looking out for him. He was meant to be at this job. Roy snapped to attention at the sound of stilettos, thankful his new boss couldn't sneak up on him like Madam. At least with her, he'd known what to expect. A snippy reminder to stretch more arch into his feet was not likely to be clacking its way down the cubicle bay. Diana planted in Roy's line of sight, knocking twice on the short partition wall behind his computer. "Roy, would you mind stepping into my office for a chat?" Of course, Diana." Roy glanced back down into the screen, scanning his email for missed clues about this meeting. Just let me save out of the accounts database." "Take your time," she nodded and marched off. A fraud through and through, and now he'd been discovered. Did Diana squint when he lied about the accounts database? Why did he feel the need to lie? Roy counted out about how long it ought to take to close the database and then got up to follow her, only to see that take your time meant I'm getting coffee first. He needed something to do. If he beat Diana back to her office, he'd probably start shaking in anticipation and blurt everything out as soon as she walked in the door. He scanned the floor. Luckily, that lean redhead with sapphire eyes could always catch his attention, and the man happened to be walking out from the restroom. That would be a good place to calm down. Roy passed his arresting coworker with a polite smile, noticing a curious leaf perched in his auburn curls. The line of sight broke, and Roy slipped into the restroom. Alone, his mind started racing again, squashing any hope of calming down. He turned to stare into the mirror, looking for a throb under his pale forehead or neck that matched the quickening thump in his eardrums. The jig was up. The cases had been slow because he'd been doing something wrong. He'd be fired and back to zero, just waiting for his life to begin. Why had he been so certain that fate was steering him to this job? Maybe this was a sign he shouldn't survive in Chicago after all. He should have just listened to his parents and moved home to Oregon. Never mind that he couldn't meet a partner back home. The town was barely a blip in the woods. Never mind that without a partner and without any good jobs around, he had zero chance of adopting, of starting a family. Never mind the torture it would be to visit his nieces and nephews. Such easy miracles for his brothers to come by, sometimes even by accident. This was it. Time to give up and start packing. He dabbed a wet paper towel on his neck and forehead and took a deep breath before walking out, his neat hair, erect dance posture, and even steps concealing his apprehension. Diana was just sitting down as Roy entered her office. "Roy, remind me how long you've been with us at Waste Services. After you completed the training program, I mean." 4 weeks?" He slid out into the chair. "Right. Yes, that's right." Diana stopped typing and folded her hands atop her desk. "Well, I'll just cut right to it. The calibration audit report was just released, and there were some findings in this department." Roy nodded along at the words, but couldn't string together the sequence. Aren't we the audit department?" "Yes, but this was the audit performed by the calibration department." "Who are they?" The many corners of this company defied Roy's grasp of geometry. "That department, well, Diana fidgeted for a moment, then mustered the full height of her torso up off her chair. She tilted her chin up so she could look down her nose at Roy. You'll do well to recall that the mission statement of every department can be found in the Waste Services Employee Manual. Roy's eyes glazed over every time he tried to read the dense manual. He'd given it honest effort, been glad for the black and white policies after so much gray area as a dancer, but he'd failed. Yet another sign he wasn't cut out for this work. Am I in trouble? What does it mean that there were findings? I'll just cut right to it. It seems our industry has switched to audits conducted by autocratic smoothware. Roy scanned over her words, puzzled again. Do you mean automatic software? What's the difference? You're not, smoothware isn't, Roy, you'll do well to recall that success in a business environment requires strong communication skills. It's a shame we won't have more time together to work on yours. Am I fired? Roy gripped the arms of his chair, bracing himself. Diana relaxed her spine, leaning back in her chair. Not necessarily. The report is opening some new opportunities. It seems the industry trend is to use projects and initiatives as a method of growing revenue, so Waste Services is allowing project managers to grow their teams. I've been informed of an opening in the inventory department. Diana turned her back to her monitor and typed as she continued. This transfer, you understand, is contingent on passing an interview with Colin, the hiring manager. I'm sending him something now. I just have a few questions so I can pass along your background. Tell me more about what you were doing before joining Waste Services. I remember your degree is in music? Dance. I was a professional ballet dancer. Roy couldn't find the middle ground for describing his former career that wouldn't sound uppity, but also wouldn't allow someone to wonder if a pole was involved. We did about 50 shows a year in about a dozen states. Were you ever in a position of leadership? No, I was in the ensemble. I danced a few solos here and there, but wasn't ever the lead. But were you ever giving instructions to anybody, in charge of something for the group? Well, I taught dance classes. Most of us did to earn a little more, and I still teach a little here in Chicago. Roy tried to picture his resume. Oh, and I was union rep. What did you do as union rep? The last question crystallized Roy's sense of déjà vu. This exact conversation with Diana happened in his initial interview. He replied from memory. Well, I did data entry, actually. I had to track travel hours and workman's comp claims. No shortage of workplace injuries in ballet. I liked it, though, taking care of everyone. Diana dismissed him with a nod and shifted her chair to face the monitor. I'm setting up an interview on Colin's calendar. Roy heard as he turned to leave. As his hand found the doorknob, though, he paused. The clicking of her keyboard had ceased. Roy, why Waste Services? How did you get from dancing to garbage? Roy turned back but kept his hand on the knob, holding onto his escape. Well, it's complicated why I left. But after I moved here to Chicago, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do and ended up working 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And I still didn't have insurance or savings, so I just started applying to as many jobs as I could, and that didn't go very well either. Then there was this one night. Roy leaned down into his hand as the fateful memory swirled through his mind. I was working a closing shift at the coffee shop, and had just gotten probably my 100th rejection. I was taking out the trash, and it felt like I was walking to my own funeral because I couldn't think of anything else to do but give up and move back home. I couldn't think of anywhere else to look. Then as I hauled the bags up toward the bin, just my luck that one of them rips clean open and scatters trash everywhere. And that was the last straw. I fell to my knees, sobbing. Then something, I don't know, instinct made me look up for some sort of comfort or guidance from, gosh, I don't even know, on high. And as I looked up, the first thing I see is Waste Services on the dumpster. A flash of the same logo on Diana's desk cut through the memory, snapping the room back into focus. It's a little silly, I guess, but here I am. Come up with a better story for Colin. Carry on.